Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really late getting my video up this week, but just bear with me. The first story we were asked to read is Cathedral by Raymond Carver, and then Howl by Allen Ginsberg. In Cathedral, we have um, pretty much three important characters. That's the only characters that are in the story. We have the narrator, who is the narrator's. And then they have the wife, and then we have Robert, who's the blind man, and the wife is the wife of the narrator, but I don't think we find his name out throughout the story. And so, um, throughout the story, we find out that the narrator's wife has a lifelong friendship with Robert, the blind man, and he's flying into Connecticut and coming up, I guess, into upstate New York along the Hudson to where they live, and spending some time with them. And this initial notion really bothers the narrator, because he couldn't imagine what it would be like to have to, God forbid, stay with a blind man, or he doesn't know how he would communicate, or if they would have anything in common. So he just kind of really turned off about the whole situation. And as the night rolls on, I think he starts to realize that um, and I believe that he was kind of jealous that, hey, my wife is with she's really interested in Robert, and like, what about me? Like, very petty jealousy. And so that's important as well. And as the story rolls on, we find out that uh, that the blind man Robert is not so different, I guess, from the narrator. And by the end of the story, they are they're drunk and stoned and watching television, and the wife is passed out on the couch, and after some acclimating and being around the blind man, the narrator finally starts to want to start to communicate with him, and it feels a little more comfortable. And the television program they're watching is regarding the cathedrals of the Middle Ages in Europe, and he dawns over the narrator that perhaps the Robert, the blind man, just has no notion of what a cathedral is. So he tries to just briefly describe it to him, and it doesn't work. And the only thing they can do to figure that out, he tells him to go get a pen and some hard paper. So he gets the grocery bag and a pen, and they start. I think the way it was is Robert was holding the narrator's hand while the narrator was drawing the cathedral. And so I believe that by the end of the story, we see the fact that that he's come together. So I think this is a kind of an interesting story about preconceived notions, maybe, and especially particularly that in the blind, and that they're not too much different from the rest of us. I live a lot of not work with, but in a community at Stanton, we have a Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind, and so they're constantly in the community, and I don't see them as too much different than the rest of us. I have to find ways to communicate with them, particularly when serving tables, so it doesn't seem too different to me. But anyway, on to the next story, which was Allen Ginsberg. And if Allen Ginsberg, you can't read his poetry until you understand who Allen Ginsberg is, and he's a leftist, radicalist, probably communist, passing out communist pamphlets and stuff. I think one part of how, and this is it's very important to understand this, and understand where he's coming from. I don't know if there's some homosexual vibes coming from Allen. I think he might have been gay, but he might be androgynous. I don't know. Who's to say? But throughout the play, we basically, I think that it was about, like, particularly in the first part, is that who is each of these who's is a different person that doesn't get recognized for their art, or what they do, or they're the heroes of the counterculture, basically, like we're addicts and poets, and these great Hunter S. Thompson types of the counterculture aren't like the scientists and the doctors and the lawyers and the business executives and the advertising executives of the 1960s, or what America really perceived to be as I guess the hallmarks of success, and and that success is obviously relative to Allen Ginsberg. And then in the second part, and there's a lot of this is to be interpreted, but a lot of them are pretty obvious in these little who blew, and so it's a who, and then it's followed by a verb in most of these stanzas here. And then in the second part, it goes to talk about Moloch, who he's a Canaanite fire god, which I guess it doesn't matter too much about the actual god, but the fact that he relates Moloch to machinery and the machine of the America's industry and America in general is a destroyer of love and youth and kind of that. And so he kind of uses Moloch over and over again as just kind of like this rolling over machine that completely consumes everything, this American machine. And so, and then we move on to the end, which I guess is written to his friend Solomon. And then, so he's writing this from Berkeley as well. And he's writing this from Berkeley. And obviously, UC Berkeley is a huge liberal school on the West Coast in California. And it is the, kind of a think tank for a lot of leftist, ideals and stuff. So it makes total sense that Allen Ginsberg would be writing this from UC Berkeley. But anyway, my name is Chris Ronaldo, and this has been, what is this? Week 13 in English 112. This will be wrapping up this class here soon. But anyway, everybody have a great weekend and a happy Thanksgiving, and I hope everybody reads, gets done with Stoner, and don't crack under the pressure of finals. Anyway, have a great week, everyone.